Alright, this is going to be a video how you take the engine mount out of a Dodge Charger all-wheel drive version. First things first, take off the snorkel or air throttle. Next you got to take off the belt because you're going to have to sort of take the alternator out, which you'll see in a couple seconds here. So first things first. Oh, fuck. First things first, there's like a bar there. I got to do the upper control arms on this anyway. And the bolts for that are here and the other one's back here. So I take this bar out. But the other reason why, yeah. Alright, anyway, so yeah, I take this bar out. Now also the other reason why I take the bar out is because when you lift the engine, you're not going to rub up against that bar and worry about like breaking anything. They tell you in the instructions you got to take the intake off and all this shit. No, I ain't fucking with that. You'll see what I do here in like a couple minutes. Alright, so the hardest part is just to get this alternator out. You're going to have this bolt that brackets to the alternator from the mount. Fortunately, these bolts in here, they're not like real tight. So you could just get a wrench in here and loosen them up. The hardest part is just try to loosen these two bolts. It's a pain in the ass. And that's pretty much the hardest part about doing this engine mount. Alright, what's going to make this kind of difficult is like you see, basically you're up against all the fucking, but once you get these bolts loosened, this is how I do it. I use this like little angled wrench here and I just do it like that. Once I get the bolts loosened, then I take like a little stubby thing and you know, from there it's no problem. But the hardest part is just to loosen these two bolts. If you know an easier way to do it, I mean, do it like that, but this is just how I do it. And again, this is actually the hardest part to remove the engine mount, just getting these two bolts loose. Okay, so now that these bolts are like loose, you don't have to take them all the way out, just leave them loose. And this little bracket on here, you can just kind of take that shit out of your way. So the hard part is done. Alright, one quick thing I forgot to mention before you even play with the alternator. Disconnect the negative terminal on the battery. Now from here, you know, it's pretty simple. Basically, you don't have to take the coolant hoses out. You're just going to disconnect it and pretty much lay it down in there because that's going to give you enough room to get the mount through here. But obviously you got to disconnect the battery so you can disconnect the B+ cable and all this shit. Hopefully this catches what I'm doing. But anyway, you see that plug there. You're going to have to, because sometimes you can't just squeeze it and pull it up. So you kind of have to get a screwdriver in here. You can't really see it. But I'm doing this all with a camera phone. So yeah. But that's the other pain in the ass part. It's pretty much just to disconnect this thing because it's got this stupid fucking tab on here. And it's like you can't just, oh, do it with your fingers. Nah, you're going to need a screwdriver or a little something to pull this tab up. And then to try to press this. See the thing moving. And then press that to release it. But again, you probably can't just do it by hand. You might need a screwdriver in there. But that's the other pain in the ass part, just doing the fucking plug. Alright, so now that you have the alternator out of the way, now you can see the mount. You can get to this other heat shield bolt a lot easier. Might as well do that here, and then you could get to these top 2 bolts there a lot easier with that shield off. Alright, so after you take this heat shield off, now you have access to that bolt and that other bolt down there. I do everything from the top, so I use this long ass extension that goes down in there. Now what I do is, you see that bolt right on the top with the nut? I just take that out. I don't play with those 2 studs sticking out. I just play with that one nut on the top. You can see the new part. I just take this out and just use the mount. Quick little note, it might help to make your life easier if you use like a, you know, a swivel joint to get to those 2, you know, main engine bolts that are mounted to the subframe. And also, of note, it's a 16 millimeter. Oh yeah, to get this, I like to stick the socket in there first, because if you try to get in there with the ratchet and the socket, it doesn't really fit right. So basically it's going to be like halfway in there. It's a little bit tight, but it's not too bad, because I just use this regular old wrench to get it out. Alright, at this point I'm ready to start jacking up the engine. See, I got the nut out on the top. Now the problem you may run into is, you know, that stud sticking up through there. It might not just fall through the hole, it might stick to this bracket. So I just put some WD-40 there. Now when you're jacking it up, again, the whole piece is going to come with it. You may have to take like a socket, like an extension, and pretty much you're just going to like basically hammer this down, and that'll loosen it if you run into that problem. So just take like kind of a long extension and a hammer and just hammer it on here, and it'll break free from this bracket. Alright, so when you're under the car, pretty much, you know, you need a floor jack. I'm going to get this block of wood here, and this is actually on the differential. Basically, it's going to lift it up on this side. So get between, you know, this power steering hose. So it should go right here. So I'm going to start setting this up, but that's where you need to jack it up. Alright, so as you can see, I'm jacking it up. See, it's got the space and that thing is sticking to it. So I'm going to hit it off. Let's see if I can capture this, because I use my camera phone. Without it fucking falling. Forgive me, people. Forgive me. Okay, hopefully that'll work. So pretty much I'm just going to come in here with an extension, and I got my hammer. Hopefully this camera stays. Of course the camera didn't stay, but now it's broken free. So now I can start raising the engine up more. See what I'm saying? Now I can move it around in here. So now all I got to do is jack the engine up more, so it'll give me the space to take it out through here. Oh yeah, just in case, I also disconnect this oil pressure sensor plug that goes here, because it's really not that hard to disconnect, so I do that. But yeah, so now you got the engine all jacked up, and now that stud is clear here, so now you could just pretty much maneuver it between here and the alternator, and that's it. Now don't get me wrong, it's a little tricky sometimes, but it is easily done. Alright, so I pretty much just twisted it you know, down in here like this. And now you see it for yourself. You can get this fucking thing out. You don't got to take the alternator all the way out or anything like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disconnect this piece, and that's it. And that's really all you have to do to get this fucking thing out. To put it back in is reverse of removal. And hopefully this helps somebody.